Okay. Good evening. Okay, so any questions from last week? We're good. Okay. Phew. No, so some people, I think maybe there are a few people that weren't here last week. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So I can't really go over everything that we covered, but if something's missing, as I go forward, then you can feel free to ask. Maybe I can clarify. And also, it's always good to think when we start any kind of endeavor. It doesn't have to just be spiritual practice, but just think about what it is you're trying to get out of it. And, rather than just kind of wandering in and not being so aware or conscious or proactive. So if you direct the mind in a certain way, saying, okay, well, at least no matter what happens, that I'll generate some better understanding on how to become more mentally healthy so that I'll be happier. And also, if I'm happier, then I'm better at taking care of others, right? Something like that. I mean, there's a Buddhist way of doing it, then there's sort of I don't know what you want to say. I don't know. We always have a motivation, right? So if you're going to college, and my kids now are talking about, my youngest son is 23 and he's talking about his career, what kind of job he's going to get. And it's so funny because if you really check his motivation, a lot of it has to do with his friends all have jobs and what their jobs are like better than his or more prestigious. He still has that, So after all I've taught him. But it's motivation, right? So, or you want to become a doctor because you really want to help people, right? Or you want to become a doctor because you've seen that it generates, a pretty good, good chance of generating good income. So there's motivations for every time we enter an action. Actually, we are motivated. Did you know that? There's five mental factors that are functioning every time we do something. And one of them is intention. In fact, those 5 mental factors, not only are they there all the time, they are there every instant. Because if you think about them, whether you think or not, you may not know that the mind is constantly active. Even when it's dreaming, even when it's in a coma, even when it's sleeping. And for the mind to be in experience, so it's having experience every instant. And some philosophers or meditators have said that an instant is about 60 mental experiences. An instant, that's considered instant, snap of the fingers. In a snap of the fingers, there's 60 mental experiences. But then there's other texts that say there's 280 mental experiences. I think it's kind of arbitrary because it's a flow. It's not actually, it's not actually like slides. Right? But it sounds like that. And so each one of those experiences, these 5 mental factors are functioning. And there's a mental experience all the time, whether we're aware of it or not. And one of those is intention. So can you believe it? When you're in a coma, you still have intention. This kind of intention is arising. Okay, it's kind of interesting. And we'll talk about that actually in some context tonight. So last week, just to review quickly, we first talked. I asked you to write down some disturbing emotion that you struggle with. Remember that? So I want you to remember it. Actually, I do want you to be able to have that at hand, at least mentally, if not physically, because it makes us all more relevant. Also, for those who don't know, and many of us forget, everything written in the Buddhist canon, okay, everything written is for generating a healthier mind, actually. There's no other purpose. And when I say healthier mind, I'm using that as a synonym for happiness. So everything in the Buddhist teachings is designed to help a person become happy. And then the formula is that happiness is synonymous with mental health. It's very important because we already and we're not in the purview of this class. We can't talk about all the things that we think make us happy, but don't. But we will talk about it a little bit tonight. So if you think about just generally speaking, if everything I don't know if you accept, what would be an argument against? Well, do you think everything a person does is to be happy or not? No. Okay, give me an example. Because you said no.
Oh,
Yeah, it'll be you. I can't. Well, no one else.
Once I said that, I'm going to take it back.
You can think about it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Never thought about it. Maybe it's strange to think about. I mean, it's strange even to say it. What do you think? And first of all, who hadn't thought of that before? Everyone's thought of it. No, they haven't thought of it. Okay, good. So now, so think about anything that we do and how it is. Sorry, stumbling on my words. Can you think of anything that isn't designed or intended to make us happy?
Raising kids.
Raising kids.
Doesn't always make us happy.
No, it doesn't. I didn't say it doesn't make us happy, but we do it to be happy. I think every action we take, so I'm going to put a bold statement out there. I would say every single action, every moment, that's pretty bold, is with the intention to be happy. That's pretty big. To think about it. Because then we have to define happiness, right? Did we define it last week? I don't think we did. It's not. So it's okay. It's not this class. Sorry. I already defined it a few minutes ago. My definition of happiness. So, my definition, as I said a few minutes ago, is has something to do with. We just said last week about. Didn't we talk about mental balance? Okay, and we're going to talk about it again. I mean, why else do this stuff? Why would we actually, when you think about it, why are we sitting here? Came tonight, something, for some reason, intention. It's always there. And the intention, I would say, is always to be happy. Now, some people say, well, raising kids. It's about them. It's not about me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But you do what you do with your kids because you don't do it to make yourself unhappy, do you?
No.
Yeah. Think about even raising kids. What's an example? My kids are older.
They're all grown up now.
You're all grown up too. Well, raising kids, it's difficult. Doesn't mean something difficult doesn't mean we don't do it to be happy. People cut themselves, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, people commit suicide. I would say even that's to be happy, isn't it? If you think about it, it's to be. I'm not saying it's the right. Any of these are the right causes or interventions. I didn't say that. In fact, all of them are probably wrong. 98%. Well, it depends on the person, but generally, just in normal, whatever that means, what normal conventional world, 99% of them will probably be incorrect. 99% are directed to be happy, and 100% to be happy, 99% are probably wrong. That's a pretty big miss. And I'm happy to discuss that because we have to, I can accept that you won't necessarily accept that on face value. You shouldn't necessarily unless you've thought about it. So that's a pretty bold statement. Okay. So last week, and we can review it again this week at the end, we talked about 4 actions that I mentioned in the book that I wrote, 4 steps. Okay? And we can look at those again. I'm not sure if you thought about them or practiced them, and if you want clarity, then again we can do them. And then we talked to the 3rd step about setting up the laboratory, that simple mindfulness exercise I taught. We'll do that again tonight at some point, about when you're falling asleep. Okay. So disturbing emotions. Okay. Oh, sorry. We didn't call them disturbing. What do we call them? Difficult emotions, right? Difficult emotions. Does that mean there's not difficult emotions? How many say, yes, that means there's not difficult emotions? Yeah, of course there are. There's good news too. Okay? Love, affection. It doesn't mean that love, affection, non-harmfulness, peacefulness, equanimity, things like that. Okay, because we're going to go today, we're starting here. So mental affliction. Now I'm using mental affliction and difficult emotions pretty much synonymously, okay? Because it's just easier. When we get in the future, when you want to get technical, then we got to get a little more technical. But at this stage, we don't. It really is not that important. The reason I say this is now what's often being translated for mental affliction is disturbing emotion, right? That's very common in the language now. If you read in Buddhist books, I'm not a big fan of that. I'm happy to use it colloquially. I think it's good. But if you start getting technical, it's not the right term. Okay? The correct term would be a disturbing mental factor, which is very clinical and scholarly and academic. But that's the right term. Okay? Disturbing mental factor or an affliction. Now, affliction is kind of weird. So let's read this. An inner mental. Now, that's redundant, by the way. An inner mental event. I don't know if there's a mental event that's not inner. I just noticed that. But that's anyway. An inner mental event whose nature is to disturb or unsettle the mental state. It creates a restless or non-tranquil state of mind. It always creates some kind of problem and always brings bad results. Now, even that bottom part is tricky because sometimes a bad result doesn't look like a bad result. Our definition changes. If you go with the first one about it disturbs or unsettles the mental state, if you're in a really, 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 really tranquil state, and you get excited about your children coming to visit you, is that a mental affliction? That excitement? Yeah, in this definition, it unsettles the mind. So, I think we also have to be a bit, realistic in the sense that these are all relative. So, relative terms, okay? So, someone who's maybe not that, for those of us who maybe our minds are not that settled, they're a little bit settled, getting excited, we won't notice it. It's not noticed as unsettling the mind. So, it's not that we're working on that one at that time. Do you know what I mean? Ultimately, yes. But this is a gradual process. So the thing is, we work on the more difficult ones first. And that's why the title of the class was working with difficult emotions, not working with emotions. But it's hard to separate. You have to talk about all of them, really. Okay? And we can talk about why. So how that arises. So you judge for yourself what you want to think about as a disturbing emotion or a difficult emotion. It's personal. But theoretical, they all are. Even the good ones, at some point, unsettle the mind. Okay? Unless you've developed a quality of mind that's extremely balanced. When that extremely balanced mind develops, which you will develop someday, then the idea of compassion and love and those positive emotions, they don't really unsettle the mind. Okay? But at our level, they will tend to unsettle the mind as well. But they unsettled it in a more positive way. Okay, we'll talk about that. So, brings bad results. Now, last week, let's see if I can't remember what I did here. Okay, so, remember we talked about 6, it's way up here. Sorry. Okay. So in general, in the Buddhist psychology, it talks about 6. There's many different ways they categorize these things. Okay, so don't get hung up on 6, 5, or 3. But I'm going to use the one that says there's 6 primary afflictions and 20 secondary. And we will not talk about the secondary unless someday you want to. But I don't intend to here. It's not. They're just branches of these 6 anyway. So this is important if you can help me make this bridge. Because remember the DSM? I showed you the book? Yeah, okay. The DSM doesn't list any of these 6, does it? So what's wrong? Who's wrong? Yeah. Okay, so we won't say anyone's wrong. We'll just work from this frame because this is one that I trust more and more familiar with, and it's older, been more tested. It's not to say that the DSM is wrong. It's just another way of explaining things. But the DSM has, what was it, 294, 278, something like that. Yeah. And in fact, in Buddhist psychology, I think that sometimes they say there's 84,000 disturbing emotions. But I don't. Some of these numbers are, I think, are a bit, I don't know. They have some root, but I'm not sure anyone knows what the 84,000 are. So you can see there are many things missing here. You could say obsessive compulsive is missing here. You could say that, right? You could say bipolar disorder is missing. You could say an anxiety disorder is missing here. You could say depression is missing. Big one, depression. The Buddhists must have really missed it. They don't have depression here. Right? Okay, but they didn't miss it. Okay, I don't think they missed it. They just have a different way of articulating it because they want us to understand. So I thought what I would do is go through these 6, and then we can see if they fit, how they fit in terms of normal, difficult emotions. Okay? We usually don't think attachment, for example, is so bad. Okay. So now we're going to remember that part, the slide before. Disturbs the balance of the mind. There's no doubt that a psychotic disorder disturbs the balance of the mind. But you don't see anything about psychosis here. Okay? What you see is, now this might be quite helpful. What you see here and what you see maybe in actual interaction with people, like your depressed cousin who's always been depressed, that kind of thing. What you see is just symptoms or an exaggeration or development of one of these emotions, one or all of these, or one or more of these disturbing emotions. Okay, I want to get that clear. So depression, for example, will fit into one of these 6. It's just a gross exaggeration of one of them. And that's the way, the Buddhists are very happy to do that, because the deep meditator is still having some disturbing emotions, but it's very light. And if he looks back in his mind, he'll go, oh, attachment is arising. But it's so subtle. And if you were to expand on that, it gets to be, where it's depression, maybe. You follow it? Okay. So attachment is just the idea of you finding something attractive. I mean, it works when there's something attractive. Then the next thing happens, not next, but when you see something attractive, you want it. You want to possess it. Okay? It's the natural magnetism of it. It's the way it works. It's not that you think about that you want it. You actually move toward. When I say you, I mean me also, right? It's a general you. And then the mind pursues it. Think about this. And then it attaches to it. So you hear about, I don't know, today I was looking at the new for me, iPad Air. Okay? Simple. The iPad Air. I have an old iPad 2. Old. Ancient. So, it's very clever. So I got an email from Apple, and they say, turn in your old one, you might get $200 for it, and then you can get the new one, and what happens? Right? I mean, this is normal. We say this is normal, but in fact, my mind is moving now. Okay? And does it happen to you where you're working and all of a sudden you find you're on the Apple site for like about 20 minutes? Does it happen? I mean, or whoever, whatever. It's good. Right? And do you know that if you look at the Apple site, it's attractive. If you look at their products, they're attractive. Now, some other culture, might not find that object attractive, right? They might find another object, like, what's those? Is it Surface? What's the PC? Surface? What's the Microsoft one? Surface Pro. Well, see, for those people, the iPad's not attractive, but the Surface Pro is attractive. That's where Buddhists, in the Buddhist psychology, they say they don't care. We don't care that you like iPad and you like Surface Pro. We care about what's happening internally. The internal activity is the same. Now, it does get interesting when you start thinking about why Surface Pro and why iPad. There are more subtle reasons, and it gets very interesting. But we're not really so concerned with that. What we're concerned with is this thing about attraction. Now, the reason we're going to talk about how why is this a problem, by the way? So what? Attachment. You think it's a problem? You know, if you talk to conventional in the world people, whoever they are, they'd say, attachment, well, of course. I love my car. I love the neighborhood I live in. Worked hard for that neighborhood. I love Hawaii. Right? And now, this is a bit of a curse. I often tell people. The curse here is, a curse is that you learn, we learn a little bit, but not enough. Do you know what I mean? You learn a little bit, but sometimes not enough you can really stop your mind from doing it. I started looking for places that I could take my wife to. We're looking all over the place, where I can go away for a few days. Same thing. Right? And what happens? So you go to the site, you go to the iPad, and it says up to $200 refund. Right? And then you start going through their steps. You choose, you want at least 32 gigs, and you want the silver, not the black. And then you want the retina display and not the non-retina. And all this. And then you get to the end and they say, $50 rebate.
What?
Yeah. That's all they're going to give me, my phone. And then the price is, you're all rewarded for $539 only. Do you know what I mean? Then what happens to the mind? Up and down. See, this is where we start turning into remember we talked about what a spiritual person is. So when we make the distinction between a spiritual person and a non-spiritual person, spiritual person is concerned with developing the potential, the inner potential. That's my definition of a spiritual person. The reason we want to be spiritual people is because we're looking for happiness. The reason we're looking for happiness is through through generating a mental balance. Because if you realize that happiness doesn't come, it's this big leap where it's not coming from those outer things. And I'm not saying you should not have a nice car, and I'm not saying you shouldn't live in a safe neighborhood. I'm not saying you shouldn't have a good husband, wife, partner. I'm not saying that, right? What Lama Yeshe used to say, he said, you people come from a beautiful culture and, a wealthy culture. You should enjoy what's there. It's like, what? Is Tibetan Lama telling you this? Yeah. He said, my own wife, we were living in Nepal many years, and I think she's quite attractive, but she, like a lot of women, and this is the 70s, mid-70s, 80s, and she would dress down, right? Because women don't want to draw attention to themselves, and particularly then in Nepal and India, because they get kind of hassled, right? So you don't show a lot of skin, and you don't wear makeup and stuff like that. So a lot of the women would wear very simple cotton, right? Keep covered up, and so Lama Yeshe kind of got on her case and said, "Oh, you're so beautiful. You put some lipstick on. Put some." He did. You need to put. He knew all the names. The mascara, things like that. He says, "Don't dress. You should dress." It's like, wow. Yeah. People are used to hearing Lama Zopa Rinpoche's stories. He's the other side, They're both the same, but just different expressions. And he said, yeah, because if you have beauty, everyone loves beautiful things, he said. So you make an offering. So he said that, you need to enjoy the things that your culture offers. In this case, he was saying in America. He says, but there's one difference. And he used to go shop. He loved to shop. He'd go buying beautiful bowls and beautiful things, even clothes, and but the thing he says is you have to enjoy the things, but one exception: you cannot get attached. Okay, and it'd be funny because not funny, but interesting that he'd come back from the West and he'd brag about all these. He's just teasing me, but look at this. You don't even have a you don't even have a camera like this, and show me this beautiful camera or something like that, and then, and then of course then I take someone up for an interview because I was acting as his secretary a lot of times, and then the person would come down and say, look what Lamieshi gave me. Can you believe he gave me this beautiful camera? He gave it all away, right? He gave everything away. But he was trying to tell us something, say about not being too. So this is the issue. This happens every time we see something attractive. On some level, we cling to it. We attach to it. We don't let go of it. We want more of it. We want to have it. And you have to do this your own analysis. You might hear about a new job. Sounds attractive. What does your mind do? It moves. Comes to stir. All of a sudden, your job looks kind of crappy. Doesn't it? Yeah. That job that you loved, like you were so excited about. My son just got off, this same younger son, finally got off a really, a good job. I know he's going to hate it in 6 months. How do I know? Because it's the nature of the thing, the attraction. I shouldn't say hate. I don't want to curse him or anything, but, it's going to change, right? Right? Because the mind moves. Okay? So that's attachment. Think about, so you got it? I don't have to go into more of that. Then you can talk about this for 3 weeks. You really can. And we're going to talk about more subtle ways. Don't get confused. I'm talking about it at the very surface level. Okay? I'm going to go into the deeper level too, where it's more, not interesting, but more interesting. If you don't have it, then you desire it. That's the problem with attachment. See, this is still, if you don't have it, you desire it. If you don't have a hybrid, all of a sudden you want a hybrid. Right? Start looking for new cars. And if you have it, you don't want to separate from it. It seems kind of easy, but this is happening every day. Actually, a lot of times throughout the day. If you have it, you don't want to separate from it. And what does your mind do? If you think about what you wrote down last week, you don't have to answer. I'm just curious. Just to reflect on, is any of it related to this? For example, this also applies to mental states. And I get kind of intense with my fellow meditators. Yoga practitioners. Yoga is interesting. It's become so... It's like this thing you look at, and it really has its roots in deep spirituality, right? And again, it's become another thing, just like meditation, just like the mindfulness movement is happening to it now, because this is the nature of the mind. The mindfulness movement came out of Buddhist practice to conquer desire as a tool to use to get the mind into balance. And what's happening? People want to go to this mindfulness retreat. They want that mindfulness teaching. There's a new mindfulness book. Let's look at that. It's happening. It's already happened with yoga, because yoga's been around longer. Yoga almost is not even a spiritual thing anymore, right? It's just physical. It's exercise. It's to get in shape, primarily. Of course, you have purists who are still there, fortunately, and I think they're being overwhelmed by. Why? Because of attachment. It's the human mind. Okay, we do this with everything. We spoil everything. But I'm not going to say why we do it. There's a reason why we do it. It's beyond our control. Hostility. Okay? A mind of ill will directed toward a source of suffering, wanting to harm or destroy the object. Someone cuts in front of you, takes your parking spot. Don't you kind of feel like running into his car? Or don't you feel like maybe like you get the space next to him, and maybe, I don't know, maybe you're not like me. I'm very hostile, I guess. People, when they get upset, when they get angry, they do want to harm. Okay? That's usually, it's really tough. You think about when you really want to sue somebody. You really feel justified. I'm not saying you never sue anyone, but you have to check. It's 99%, it's either from hostility or attachment. It's not from one of it's generally not from one of the healthy emotions like compassion, care, I mean, it could be, right? It could be. I know of a case where one lama, it's a true story, and it's been in recent time, like in the last 15 years, was trying to do a project in Tibet. You know, build a monastery or something like that. And he was using a Tibetan to help him, and the Tibetan ended up ripping him off. The money, I know, sounds weird. Really? Yeah, people are people. But this Lama, who's really a great practitioner, refused to sue him. And you would think, oh, you know, you got it. But he refused because a couple of things he said is it would destroy his family, the bad guy's family. It would destroy his family. That wouldn't be good in Tibet. They live under such terrible conditions. And anyway, he's going to experience the results of his actions anyway. So it's really interesting. We don't think like that. I mean, I don't think like that. Try to, but I don't. Okay? So, like for example, many lamas, you know, practitioners, Tibetans, Buddhists, they get something stolen from them, they're okay. They're okay. They're happy, in a sense. The absence of hostility, right? Okay? Why? Because the hostility just disturbs the mind. Anyway, the thing was stolen. It's gone. You can go to the police and report it, look around, you know. But they're focused on the quality of mind, not right and wrong in that sense. Okay? Because that doesn't do anything. So you see how their values shift. And it doesn't mean being a doormat, you know, those kinds of things, right? There's answers to that, too. You don't allow people to exploit you, and you know, we won't go there. This is just talking about hostility. And the problem with hostility is you can have it towards another person, but you can also have it towards an object. As I walk by Ur's camera, I might stub my toe on his tripod. You know, many times your natural reaction is you get kind of pissed off with the tripod, and then you take it to Ur and say, why did you put it there? Can't you see people walk there? Right? That's a hostility. Ill will. And I actually kind of feel like, I hope Urs gets, you know, upset. And you kind of feel like he really needs to learn a lesson. You know, you feel that if you admit it. You know, why else would you lash out at a person? Why do we lash out at people? We want them to hurt like we hurt. That's hostility. Oh, I hope he doesn't make it through the green light either. Don't we do that? Okay, that's all hostility. What happens to the mind? If you're kind of a spirit, you know, trying to develop your qualities, your internal qualities, and you look at your mind, it's like that. It's jumping all over the place. So what? You might wonder, so what? It's jumping all over the place, right? The so what is that once we, excuse me, I think everybody has had some experience of mental balance. And experience, you know, let me put it differently. I think everyone has had some experience of mental well-being, like, you know, some sort of ecstatic joy, or I don't want to make it like too exaggerated, but, you know, you've been in a place where mentally you've been happy, and you get it. I really believe almost everyone has that. Some people covered it up, some people block it, some people don't go there very often. But our goal is to go there more. Now, the problem with going there more is it kind of says that where you're usually at is not the right place. Do you know what I mean? And that's what Buddha taught. The very first thing he taught is it's not the right place. And a lot of people don't want to hear that, which is understandable. You know, it's like you buy this beautiful house only to find out that it's full of termites. It really is. You know, I mean, this thing that we invest so much joy and energy into, I mean, is really full of termites. I'm not talking about the house. I'm talking metaphorically. The house is too, by the way. Okay? So that's about hostility. Okay? What do you think depression is? Do you think it's one of these two, attachment or hostility? Do you think I'm actually sincerely asking, because I've thought about, because in modern psychology they say that depression is anger turned inward, right? So then it would seem to fit hostility, but sometimes it doesn't always fit that to me. Sometimes, like if you lose a loved one or you lose a job, people often get depressed after losing a job. Is that really anger turned inward? I think it's more attachment then. You can't let go. Of course, you might feel bad about it. Develops into what happens is then it cascades into I'm not worthy. I'm never going to get a job again. Fear, those things. But that one seems to come more from attachment to me. So I don't think it's just anger. I'm not sure if depression is anger. Think about it. That emotion is deadly, right? Just from that emotion, people then commit suicide. Or they kill other people. Just from that. Hostility. You people, it's really amazing. One disturbing emotion. You go and they shoot up a school. Pride. Now this is really weird. Who thinks pride is such a bad deal? You do? Okay. Or arrogance. It's really, if you start thinking about arrogance. A puffed up, conceited mind comes from comparing yourself with others and seeing yourself as having superior qualities. Now there's a kind of pride that also sees yourself as having the worst qualities. Pride, there's I think 6 types. Did I say here? 7 types. We're not going to go through them. That's too much. But one of the prides is you are the lowest or the worst. Yeah, it's pride. Because you still feel special. And if you think this doesn't come up, just hang around some people who are, kind of in whatever it is, in with the boss, in with celebrities, in terms of wealth, and you stand next to them and think if you don't compare yourself. Very, very different. Now, it's true we all have pride. Now, some people, this is their primary disturbing emotion. And taken all the way to the extreme of a narcissist. But, in normal terms, you find this pride is a lot of times when you know someone and you think, I can't believe he did that. I cannot believe it. And then they're confronted and they'll make up every reason. They cannot see that they were at fault. We all know people like that. Cannot see that they are at fault. That's pride. That's why it's a dangerous emotion. Okay? Now I have there, based upon the view of the transitory, very, very important term, which we will get into more. This is, I think, very interesting, is that the person who's prideful has an extreme grasping or holding at an identity of themselves that is not in tune with other people's perception. It's not in reality, conventional reality. I have a relative like this, and it just blows my mind. He really thinks that people see him that way. He was a big shot lawyer in New York, and he thinks he's a big shot guy. He lives out on the West Coast now, but you can't talk to him. And if you bring up anything that like, why didn't you do this, and why didn't you do? You owed them $100. Why don't you pay? Oh, they don't care about it. They have a lot of money. That's pride. Okay, it's having this idea of yourself that's inflated. Okay, I think we know what it is, but if you start looking at how it's really a disturbing emotion, you kind of get into. It really becomes pretty. People who can't be wrong. Where I experienced a lot of pride, my projection of it anyway. I don't know what's inside people's heads, but I did an internship at Stanford for 3 years, and I was feeling very uncomfortable there. And I didn't realize so much later that it was because I was at the bottom of the pecking order, and you had these doctors and psychiatrists and interns and residents and then psychologists and psychologist interns and then educational specialists, interns, all like that. And then down at the bottom was you, and I was just above you. Social workers were at the bottom. And then I was right away. I was a marriage family therapist intern. So I was just barely. And who did all the work? You and I did. And I used to just, you go to these lectures and these talks given by these guys, and some women, of course, and the experts. And I go, God, how do they do that? Because I'm so nervous just talking in a table of them. Here, these guys are giving talks in front of a couple hundred people, and I just couldn't get it. And then I realized that it's because they really believe they were experts. Well, they convinced themselves they were experts, right? Do you know what I mean? You convince yourself you're an expert, and people treat you that way too. So that's kind of a false sense of self. They're also fathers, husbands. Like my dad, he was a really great guy, but one thing was interesting about him. He was a businessman, and really a lot of love for him. But one thing that was difficult is when you had a conversation. That's an earlier era, so you didn't have conversations, right, heart to hearts. But we would try, and he would always talk like he was having a business discussion, like it was a negotiation or something. I think that's pretty common because that sense of identity was strong for him. That's where he got his sense of power. Of course, it was a weakness too, right? So that's the pride thing. The more you can build that up, and I am. Don't you know I'm? And you put that. Be father, mother, boss, whatever. Okay? Yeah, closed to learning. That's what I was going to say. Don't ever be an expert. You know the problem with experts? They don't learn. Because they have to be knowing. Right? This ignorance. Back there where it said 7 types. I'm not going to go into the 7 types, but I'm going to talk more about this one as we go on. Based upon the view of the transitory. Let's think for a minute. What would a person be prideful of? Let's give me an example. Like you see it in the newspaper or something. Example.
Broke a record.
Huh?
Broke a record.
Broke a record. Let's get more specific. Which record?
How about a running record?
Running record. Fastest mile.
Fastest
Fastest mile. Okay. So the fastest mile is based upon what? What's the data? What did the fastest mile?
It's faster than the other person.
Faster than the other person. But what is faster than the other person?
The person that just broke the record.
What in that person is? What's the person? I'll help you out. Their body was faster, wasn't
Yes,
it?
body,
Maybe
yeah.
some mental strength, but probably mostly body.
Yeah, body physical.
Okay, so they broke the record, and they expect to have all this adulation and respect and endorsements and stuff. But the body broke the record, right? Are they the body? So they say, let me help you. I'm not gonna put you on the spot yet. So you say, like,
Yeah.
I am the world record holder, right?
Yeah.
I am. Is that I am mental or is it physical?
It's the ego.
It's ego. So we can say right now I'm good with that. Is ego mental or physical? It's mental. But it's the body that broke the mile. That's what this means about the view of the Trinity. We project onto we have in Buddhist anatomy or psychology really, there's 5 parts to a person. Okay? One of the parts is the body, and then there's 4 mental parts. Again, it's just a designation, okay? So we say I broke the mind. What happens is transitory is we take a quality and we project onto one of those 5 and say I'm that. Like, let's take an easier one. Beauty. A lot of people, there are people who have pride around their beauty. Okay, that's the I. That's a self, an I projected onto the physical body, one of the 5 aggregates. So, but the body is moving. It's in a state of movement. It's not fixed. So how do you fix something that's not fixed? How do you stamp something that's not fixed? Can you stamp onto water? No, because it's moving. Or smoke is a better one. Can you put a stamp on smoke and say, that's beauty? You can. It's moving. Which part do you say it's beautiful? Okay? We're going to get into this more tonight. That is what pride does. It superimposes onto one quality and says, I am that. I'm so smart. I'm a great lawyer. I'm a great psychiatrist. I'm a great psychologist. I'm a beautiful model. I'm a great actor. I'm a great rapper. I'm a great musician. I'm a great runner. But you think about it, to say that I'm a great runner, you have to impose that greatness on something. And that something is moving. That's what it means by transitory. In fact, the guy who ran the mile, broke the mile, that guy, just a matter of instances after he crosses the finish line, doesn't exist anymore, does he? Because there's nothing that's not moving. His mind is moving, his body is moving. There's nothing permanent. I know I'm going ahead of you because we can talk about it. But there is, just take my word for it for a minute. There's nothing permanent in that experience. Permanent means unchanging. So if there's nothing unchanging, then everything's changing. So if everything's changing, where's the great miler? Where's the great physicist? Where's the great musician? Where's the great author of the book? It's gone. It doesn't exist at all anymore. But yet I could walk around, my book, this book, right? That's what I could easily do. That's what people do. That's pride. On to something that doesn't, that's why I want to explain about the view of the transitory. On to something that's transitory. Okay? This is a big one. Ignorance is the biggest, hugest, most humongous, disturbing emotion. It's the granddaddy. It's it. I'll read this to you, and we'll talk about it. Probably next week we'll go into this even in more depth, or the opposite of possessing a mistaken understanding of relative and ultimate reality. Whoa, doesn't sound too psychological there. Sounds pretty philosophical, right? A mind that, can you see okay? A mind that is not clear with respect to nature and qualities of things. Respect to the nature and quality of things, not to nature. A mind that is not clear with respect to the nature and qualities of things. Holding a true self. Leading to misunderstandings. Impure as pure, impermanent as permanent, suffering as pleasure. We're going to talk about these even more. Don't worry too much about it right now. But I want to tell you something about ignorance that I want you to remember. Let's see if I have another slide. I can't remember. No. Okay. I told you this is the granddaddy of them all. In Buddhist psychology, you could say there's only one diagnosis. Okay? Just like there were 294, 78, whatever it was in the DSM. You could say, actually, even though I said before there's 84,000, there's 6, there's 5, there's 20, there's 3. Really, you could say there's only one. And that's ignorance. If we were to free our minds from the disturbing emotion or the mistaken view of ignorance, we would have no other problem. All problems would disappear. Okay, so ignorance, we could say, is the only thing we need to focus on. The problem here, and I'll explain why isn't it only that? Why isn't it only ignorance that's worked on? Well, in a way, ignorance is always worked on. Every intervention we use is to combat ignorance. The problem is that we're at so many different levels that people don't have the capacity to merely focus on ignorance and its interventions. Okay? The direct intervention for ignorance, which we'll talk about next week, are for example, wisdom, let's just say. Well, people don't have the capacity to actually understand that. And if they understand it, then they don't have the capacity to meditate on it and approach it. You know what I mean? It's just like that in normal psychotherapy as well. Some people can only do, elementary things before the advanced. So focusing just on conquering and eliminating ignorance is in a way, it's very advanced. But there's no technique that's not designed to get you there. It's always to get you to wisdom, which is the opposite of ignorance. Okay? So, again, we will get into this soon. But just so that you understand, okay, now I know what to say. So, to understand what this is as a definition, ignorance ignorance is, let's start over. We don't see reality. That's ignorance. Okay, that's synonymous with ignorance. And when we talk about reality, it's very simple. Definition of reality is when something exists the way it appears. Think about that. So, for example, if you hallucinate David Copperfield, makes the Statue of Liberty disappear, we all can accept that's like an hallucination, or that doesn't exist the way it appears, right? There's a trick there. Okay, or a magician does something, pulls a rabbit out of your ear. You know that it doesn't exist the way it appears, so it's an hallucination or an illusion, right? What we're seeing right now, our experience, what you're hearing, what you're seeing, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, is also doesn't exist that way. But we don't even know that. At least with a rabbit coming out of your ear, it isn't true. But for most human beings, we don't know that what we're experiencing is actually not true. We think this is true. It doesn't mean that this isn't here. Okay, it doesn't mean you're not there and I'm not here. It doesn't mean that. It's very important. That would be nihilistic to say none of it exists. Okay, it exists, just not the way we're experiencing it. Okay? And I'll go into this more later. But this is what the meaning of ignorance is. It sees something that's not there. Another way of saying, it doesn't see what is there. To see what is there would be seeing reality. Okay? Now, just a quick point. What it sees is it sees impure things as pure. For example, the easiest one is impermanence. It's like right now, if I saw you, or if I saw my world as reality, what's really here, right? We talked about it a little bit last week. What's really here is this really, there's nothing not moving. Everything looks to me as permanent, meaning not changing moment to moment. Now, intellectually, I know it's all there. The atoms are changing, and my mind is moving, by the way, too. My mind is, all this perception is changing like really fast. But I don't see any of it. Not really. That's ignorance. So we don't see what's really there. We see what's not there. I guess Gillick says, one of my teachers says, we see what isn't there, and we don't see what is there. That's one of the best descriptions of ignorance. We see what isn't there. So what I see that isn't there, I see permanence, for example, static. Everything looks static to me, and that's not there. What is there is impermanent, is movement, moment to moment, production. Everything is arising, abiding, and falling away rapidly. I don't see any of it. I might come to say, oh, they painted the building. So I see like a gross sense of it. Oh, you cut your hair, right? You see these gross things, right? We're not talking that level. Okay, we're talking subtle level. For this someday this pillar won't be here, right? Everyone can agree. This pillar will not be here forever, right? That's gross impermanence. We can kind of see that. But for that pillar not to be there in 30 years, it has to be changing right now. Just from a physics point of view, it has to be changing. Otherwise, it would be permanent. And it would be here in 30 years, and it would be here in 100 years. The only way that things can change is they have to be changing moment to moment as well. Everyone knows that, right? Okay, that's physics. That's not even Buddhist physics. But we don't see that. We do not perceive it. Well, I should qualify. If you're like me, you don't perceive it. And guess what else is happening? The mind is doing the same thing. And it doesn't even know. All this perception is mental, isn't it? Or is it? Okay, so the one that's easy to see right away is we don't see things as, one of the misunderstandings we live by, or that we're out of touch with in reality, is impermanence. That's just one. There's many, unfortunately. There's a couple big ones, though. Those three are big ones. And then there's another one that's big, that's not even on there. It's so big it's not on there. So you want a break? I think it's good to have a break.
Yeah.
Yeah. Getting a headache? Well, it has to be helpful. I'm not just interested in sharing big ideas. We've got to make it helpful, okay? For those things you wrote down last week. Okay, so get something to drink or bathroom.
What's the big one that's not on there?
True existence. Seeing things as inherently existent.
TV though?
Yeah. Okay.
The ringer be my gift.
Oh, yeah. The dead ringer. Okay. So, so, according to last week, we'll do the ABCD. One moment. I'll walk you through it. And then I've added an E over the years. It's not in the book. But ABCD, I'll remind you what the ABCD are. And then E, I'll walk you through that. We have in our tradition, this Tibetan Buddhist tradition, two forms of meditation that we do together. But we sometimes develop one and then work on the other one and vice versa. The one that you're familiar, I don't know if you're familiar with, the one that's familiar to the world is this idea around mindfulness meditation, which actually we don't call mindfulness. Mindfulness meditation is just a little piece of that kind of meditation. That kind of meditation we refer to as single-pointed concentration, of which mindfulness is one is a quality or an aspect of it. The other form of meditation that we combine with that, we work on, is what we refer to as analytical meditation. I have another word for it. I like to call it examination meditation or inquiry. Inquiry. So that's the E, in A, B, C, D, E. So I've added an E because I'm not comfortable with just teaching mindfulness meditation or single-pointed concentration. So tonight we'll do the ABCD, and then after a short time of doing the ABCD, I will give you an E. But the E's are often a walkthrough. It's like a reflection. So I will lead you through a talk, a good deal of part of that. Just that's the idea. Then it's like giving an outline. So that'll be just about 2 or 3 minutes long, probably. Okay, after we do the ABCD. Okay. Excuse me. A stands for anatomy, so you just want to check that your feet are flat on the ground, unless you're sitting cross-legged. And the primary thing is your back is straight, but not rigid, comfortably straight from the crown of your head to your tailbone. The spine is straight, I mean. And your eyes are gently closed or just gently open. And your hands you just can relax, put on your knees or on your lap. And then you just can do a quick scan. You're not holding any tension anywhere. Just by noticing if there's any tension, and then the tension just releases. And your head should be just slightly bowed forward, not a lot, just an inch or so. So that's A for anatomy. B is breath. The breath is our anchor in this meditation. Do not manipulate the breath. Just observe it neutrally. And you're observing it at the nostrils or at your abdomen going up and down. It's personal choice which one you use. And remember, it's neutral observation. If it's fast, slow, whatever it is, shallow, deep. You're just an observer of the breath. C stands for counting. As you inhale, naturally, on the exhalation you count 1. The next inhalation, or I should say the next exhalation, 2. Next exhalation, 3. Until you get to 10. At 10 you go backwards to from 9, 8, 7 to 1, and then do another round of 10. That's the counting. If you lose count, you start over just to help enhance your focus. D is for distraction, and then distractions are actually part of this meditation in the sense that while you're counting, your mind most likely will get distracted. You note it, say, distraction, and bring it back to the counting. If you do that, then you're doing the actual meditation. So we'll do this for a few minutes, and then I'll lead you through the inquiry. Okay? So what you're inquiring about is you're going to look at, with your eyes closed, in your mind's eye, how you see the world in terms of permanence. What you're looking at here is to get a feel, a real sense, really in the gut, of how you see things as permanent, unchanging, static. So just spend a few minutes going through your day or experiences and look and get a feel like, yes, that's what is meant by permanence. That's what I was seeing. The things in your world. Now think about yourself. Think about yourself sitting here. You can say, I'm meditating, I'm sitting, I'm tired, I'm bored, I feel good, whatever. Bring your sense of self, bring it up, and see that that person you're talking about, that person you're referring to, is also permanent. You see him or her as permanent, that identity. Just get a feeling for this, an understanding of it. I'm sitting here unchanging. If your mind wandered, bring it back to the sense of permanence of yourself. You can actually feel it and see it. Okay. Short introduction. So later, as you develop that inquiry, you apply the same ideas to routines. You start seeing, I guess the point is that these ideas, everything we've talked about, is something to experience, to have an experiential relationship with these ideas. That comes through mind training, and in this case, mind training is really what meditation really is. There's no real reason to learn mindfulness practice or analytical meditation if it isn't to train the mind. And people, do it for many reasons. Particularly mindfulness these days is done for stress reduction. It's done to be more aware. It's done to get the mind more balanced. Those kinds of things, all of which are good. But in this tradition, that won't get rid of any of these disturbing emotions. That's the problem. In fact, to get rid of the disturbing emotions, you have to do some of this other inquiry side, analytical meditation. And, for example, we can talk about for example, the permanence that we talked about, you can take that and go deeper. The idea is to take it deeper until you have this visceral experience. It's an insight. You have a direct perception. So it's beyond. We use the intellect to have a direct perception. Once you begin to have that direct perception, you leave the analyzing part. You drop the intellectual part. But you use the intellectual to get there. It's like chipping away, and then once all of a sudden you have some experience, and don't analyze anymore. Go into the experience. You can perceive impermanence. For example, you can perceive all these things that we're talking about. You can perceive attachment. When I say that, what I mean by that is we're talking about attachment, how it shows up, but there is a mental factor. There's a mental factor, a mental quality, a mental function that's attachment. And you can actually watch that function in the same way you can watch your blood move through your veins. But to watch that, we have to have some single point, some calmer mind, some single point concentration. That's why that's why mindfulness practice, meditation practice is developed and used in the Buddhist teachings. Because without a focused mind, and without a clear mind, and without an attentive mind, we can't see it. And you know how sometimes you have insights? Everyone has insights, maybe through whatever, walking in nature or therapy or maybe meditation or drugs or whatever, right? But they don't stay. Why? Because we don't have focus. We don't have concentration, we don't have clarity. Sometimes we have concentration, but we don't have clarity. Sometimes we have clarity and then it disappears real quickly because we don't have concentration. So it's putting those two together along with what's called discernment. Don't worry about that. But the main thing is clarity and focus. So it's really a bummer when we have these insights or we have these ideas and we can't hold on. Like how many of you, how able were you to focus on, just say, the breath? How'd it go? It's difficult though, isn't it? Did you have distractions? And how many people did not catch a distraction when they should have? Should have, you know what I mean? Distractions happen, right? In the permanence, focus on permanence, did you get a feeling for that? Good. Really important to know what the enemy is. You could say the enemy. You have to know what it is what is the mistake first. Very important. We're always so we tend to look like, impermanence. Yeah, okay, I got to meditate on impermanence. But that'll come. In a way, that's kind of naturally come when you get rid of the obstacle. It's like if we don't see impermanence, what are we doing instead? Focusing on permanence. I think it's better to know what we're doing instead. Okay, it's the same thing with what you asked me, what was the big one? Okay, so that's ignorance. There's 3 more to go. Should we just do them real quick? Is it helpful to do them, or do you want to do something else? Let's just get them down. Doubt. Isn't that funny? That doubt is considered one of the major afflictions, disturbing emotions. But I think that this, now this is the technical description, and I don't want you to get hung up on this too much, but I have to give it to you because it's kind of my job. But I'd like you to think of doubt in another way too, as confusion. I mean, I can't decide, should I do this or should I do that? Or maybe I should call my friend. I'll call Tish. She's pretty good at that kind of stuff. Should I buy that house or not buy the house? Tish says, you should buy it. It's a really good deal. Yeah, but, what about that thing about interest rates going up? Do you think they're going to go up or do you think they're going to go down? That, people like that? Okay. That's kind of a gross way of talking about this doubt. That's really an affliction, isn't it? Doesn't it drive you crazy? Sorry, being judgmental. Doesn't it drive you crazy when you know someone like that and they call you and you feel like you want to be so helpful and you give them this great advice and it didn't do any good? Anyone know people like that or not?
Yes.
Okay. That kind of doubt. Now, we take it into a more destructive level. The destructive level happens when you start talking about reality, conventional reality, ultimate reality, whatever you want, how things really are. And you doubt that it's true. Doubt is good, by the way. I'm not talking. There's a level of doubt you need to have. We need to have. You should be cautious. You should investigate. Don't accept things on faith. We believe that in this system of thought. That's different than this doubt. This doubt is where, let me explain this to you, blah, and explain it really well, and you go, yeah, but I don't think so. It's not true. Okay. Now they choose these things like Four Noble Truths. You don't have to worry about the title. It's more about, let's say, the things are in the nature of pain. That's the first noble truth, right? And you talk about it and you look about it and you really invest, and you kind of can't get there. You know, after all investigation, you come to the conclusion, I really don't think it's true. That's this kind of doubt. Now that doubt's dangerous because it then leads us to do all kinds of other things. Now these are somewhat related with the sixth one, which is wrong view. Doubt can lead to wrong view, related. But I think the doubt is like, you just don't know how things are. I doubt they're that way. I doubt that, and you don't get anywhere. Skeptics. I really like skeptics, but I can't stand them the way they tend to manifest here in the States. I think scientists are good skeptics, but these other guys who don't want to know anyway, it's like nothing you can say. Well, they're not skeptics, actually. Right? Skeptic, I think, means to be skeptical of a view, but you're open, maybe my idealism anyway, that you're open to being wrong. I think skepticism is great, but these guys who are often called skeptics, it doesn't matter what you say, they don't want to have, they just want to be right. So it's this kind of doubt, I think. Okay? Then the last two are, maybe that's the last, no, that was the last two. Wrong view. So this is the last one. And there are 5 types, but I'm not going to go into them, I don't think. It gets too picky. So I didn't read doubt. Did I read doubt? Did I have a definition there? Sorry. 1 minute. An attitude wondering if relative truths are true or not. Okay. Wrong view. A mental factor whose function is to distinguish the object before it and determines its qualities in a mistaken manner. Instead of leading to happiness, it leads to unhappiness. So seeing things as permanent is a wrong view. We view things that way, right? I'm sorry, but I see things, no matter how much I know, they're impermanent. I view them as permanent. When I gave the definition of reality before, I might have said it wrong. I might have made it backwards. Jody was pointing something out. Did I say the definition of reality is that is the way an object appears is the way it exists? Or did I say the definition of reality is that things exist the way they appear? It's kind of right, but it's also can be wrong, that one. It means that something the way it appears is the way it exists. I might have put it backwards. So not to offend anybody, but you know how fundamentalists are of anything? Fundamental scientists, fundamental Christians, fundamental Muslims, fundamental Buddhists. That's wrong view. That would be a manifest of how this operates. I'm generalizing, but just to give you a sense of what that looks like. Or, excuse me if I offend anyone. I don't mean to. But like these pro-life people, not pro-life. Pro-life who believe it's good to then kill abortion doctors. That's wrong view. Okay? Or that there's many. Gosh, I wish I had a newspaper here. This one's quite fascinating. And then the 5 types, I may have listed them just to give a little flavor. So you see that number one, that's the main one we're interested in. View of the transitory collection. Oh, she's so beautiful. Wow. Oh, he's so amazing. You know? You see this all the time, like during political campaigns. Isn't it amazing? There's people who like really believe their candidate is that good. I mean, that's not criticizing the candidate. It's just human nature, right? The view of holding to extremes. What that means is cause and effect definitely doesn't exist, or God is permanent, and that kind of thing. Those are extremes. God is permanent, created everything, ultimate creator, and that's not criticized. It's just it's an extreme view. There is unworthy views is that thing about like suicide bombers, esteeming an unworthy view. That's same with mistaken morality or behavior. Like that's related a lot of times in India, where those ascetics, stand on one leg, for obtain liberation. That's a mistaken morality. Or killing, or in Nepal, they sacrifice animals to please the deity so they can obtain a higher rebirth themselves. That's one example of esteeming mistaken morality. And then wrong view is just wrong view. Okay. I mean, these are more you can get more technical. Okay. Now, what I told you was the view of the transitory is the main. This is really, really important for psychology, for all the problems. Okay. So we're viewing transitory things incorrectly. We view them as existent. So the aggregates that's spoken of here is just your physiology and your psychology. Okay, so it has to do with your mind and your body. Okay, now in your mind, we can talk about your feelings, for example. A simple example would be if you haven't had dinner tonight and your stomach starts rumbling, whatever it does. And you say, I'm so hungry. Right? That's a very concrete description of what it means to view the transitory. The stomach is something like that. All that's going on is something transitory. It's moving moment to moment, right? It's being produced and it's disintegrating, right? And by the way, for us to see this, we perceive the stomach, doesn't it mean we're separate from it? If you're the same thing, this pillar can't see itself. Okay? A mirror can't see itself. You have to have an object and a subject. So the subject perceives the stomach, whatever. And this is a gross example. It's a very, very relevant one. And it says, I'm hungry. Now, if I keep you here by some magical thing for like several days, right? You're all tied in your chairs. The eye gets more and more suffering, doesn't it? In relationship to the stomach getting more and more hungry, right? The body getting agitated. Now, how does that make sense when you think about it? I see the stomach. I perceive the stomach being hungry. Are you separate from the stomach, or are you the same as the stomach? To see it, aren't you separate? To see something, aren't you separate? But we impute onto the stomach I. Isn't that weird? I'm hungry. And if you extend it, just to exaggerate it, which helps to make a point, if after a day or two of sitting here, you really, and myself, you're panicking, right? You're suffering, or you're going unconscious, or if something weird is happening, it's getting worse. The suffering, right? The I. That's what is meant by wrong view. That is a wrong view. So let's say I feel, with my wife, I saw her. Oh, I love her so much. I first met. Love, I do too now still. But oh wow. But I love her so much. What's happening is I'm experiencing some sensation, right? An emotion. Part of the mind. That's why I wanted using this as an example because the first one was transitory on the body, the physical, but we do the same thing with the mind. So I have an experience of some elated emotion, right? Right? And they say, oh, I'm so in love with her. It's weird. When you think about it, this I has imposed, there's a feeling of warmth and affection, right? Attraction. That feeling is transitory, right? Can you see it? It's transitory? Mm-hmm. If it wasn't transitory, it would always be there. It can only be transitory or not. There's no other way. And you have to think about that when you leave. That's an inquiry. Can something be something besides transitory and not transitory? It's a good inquiry. At this one, you have to take my word for it. So it's either transitory or not. Well, we know it's transitory. Because as soon as she doesn't smile at me, then right? Well, she's not that great anyway. There's a lot of them like her. Things like that, right? Because the feeling changes. But that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is that feeling that arose, oh, I love her so much. Okay? Or Lama Yeshe used to use cheesecake a lot. But cheesecake is something physical. So let's lose something mental. So that emotion arises. Or we say, I really like hybrids. They make a lot of sense. So we say that it's a transitory thing. Even the hybrid, the car, is transitory. And then there's an opinion, right? It's just a point of view. It's just a mental concept, right? It's nothing more than that. But we give it solidity and reality. That's what this means by aggregates. Now, what happens next is I see Doug driving down the road with his Tesla. You have a Tesla? Bentley. No, Tesla. You have a Tesla right now anyway. Okay, this is Tesla. And what happens? Wow, nice car. Oh, hybrids, opinion, right? Electric even. And I say, wow, that's a really great car. What happens next? I want that. That's what it means by this. So what it does, we project onto this object. Now the object can be physical or it can be mental. That's what the thing is, okay? Mental or physical. And then because I see that Tesla as existing the way it appears, one of the way it appears is it appears as permanent. I don't see any change in that. If I did, it would look like smoke. Right? It'd be very unsolid. But I see something solid. And then the view of transitory means I immediately project onto that transitory collection beauty. There's no beauty there, by the way. There's no ugliness, there's no beauty. It's nothing. I mean, there's something there, but it doesn't have any qualities like that. You following me? Then the problems arise. God, I wish I could afford a Tesla. Maybe I hear it, but really I like Teslas, but really their range is too small. Then you hear they've expanded the range because they're buying this factory with producing lithium batteries or whatever they're called. And I prefer more of the SUV. They're coming out with the SUV next year. Did you know that? Anyone know that? Yeah. And you can pre-order them. Oh, okay, I'm back on track. You go, you find out they're, how much are they? 80,000, I think. Something like that. Oh, but they have financing. Right? All this projection onto this transitory collection. Aggregate just means collection. And then I order it, and now it's mine. Right? It's mine. I feel good, or it's mine. That's what we do all day long. Everything is mine. At lunchtime, you go to the store, you buy some yogurt, because you just like yogurt, and maybe a little salad. It's mine. It's mine at that point. 10 seconds before, it was in there. The fact that I took it out and gave some paper for it, now I've labeled it mine. We do this all, and this is all on this transitory collection. Do you see what I'm saying? Or if I say, he criticized me. Think about that. We're doing that. We're pretty sensitive people. I don't know. I really knew Rick really well. I can't believe he just walked right by me, though. Supermarket. He pretended like he didn't notice me. I know do you think he saw me? I think he saw me. Me. I think he saw me. Where's the me? I ask you. No answers? Is your body you? Let's say it is you. At what point is it you if it's moving moment to moment? Okay, so no, it's like we say you fall in love with someone, but then you ask them, well, what do you mean you fall in love with them? Which thing? Them. What's them? Oh, I just really like the way, he walks. Just being there means. But, we certainly, do we want? I don't know, it gets macabre. I was going to get macabre, and I can't do that right now. But, if it's are we in love with the body or not? The person. We say their body, that's them. Right? Is it? What if they're just sorry, okay? What if it's just a dead body? If it's them, then we should be attached and just love the dead body, right? If the body's them. Right? Right? So what do we mean then? Oh, it's their spirit, it's their soul, it's their mind. Well, where's that? That's not physical. Isn't it weird? So we project onto this thing, this transitory thing, we say, that's him, that's her, I love her, I love him, and then you can't find it. You can't find it. Is this too weird or what?
No, I can't.
Yeah? So we say, no, it's not the body, right? We say, I love her mind.
Yes, it's that.
Yeah, but the mind is formless. So it's impermanent, it's moving moment to moment. Which part do you love? Isn't that weird? This is what ignorance is. Okay? That's why ignorance does all this, makes all this up, and believes it, and none of it's true. It's not that there's not someone there. There's someone sitting there, and talking here. There is some, but not the way we're experiencing it. That's all a myth. That's all hallucination. Isn't that weird? I think that's kind of weird. And that's what we do. So that's what it means by view of the aggregates, views of you. And then what we say is, my wife. That's the last thing, Right. Even though you don't, which part you mean my wife? Her body or her? Oh, no, not her body. So why do you get jealous when that guy's looking at her? It's not her. So you just told me. Your wife, it's not her body. But you just got jealous because some guy's hitting on her. Doesn't make sense. He's hitting on her mind? No. Do you see, this is ignorance. The point is that all the time we're acting in a way that is ignorant, and what tricks us is we view these transitory collections as solid and real, and then we impute on them. Okay? So for example, something beautiful, the Tesla. Let's say it's a beautiful car. Where is the beauty? It's in your mind. Okay. So you own a Tesla, and someone dents it. Since the beauty is in your mind, you just keep it beautiful, a dented, beautiful image. No. You say, oh, my car is ruined. Do you know what I mean? You're right, it is in the mind, but is that how we behave? No, we impute onto the car itself. We impute onto the person. she's really nice. That's imputed onto her. If she was really nice, what's your name?
Kala.
Huh?
Kala.
Kala. Everyone would see Kala as really nice. But there's sometimes when maybe someone doesn't, right? It could happen.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? That imputation, but we will say, yeah, Kala, I met her. I just met her. She's really a nice woman, isn't she? And when I say it, I mean it as something that is existent for real. That's my point. Okay? Now, I run into Urs at the market, and I say, wow, Kala, she's nice, isn't she? Urs says, what, her? Okay? That's what happens. Then I get upset, right? Then what comes up for me? Hostility. Because I want to feel protective of you. Because I see it's like that I in mine is now here. Nice. And Urs, right, doesn't have the same point of view. And it's just a point of view. But I don't believe that. I believe Kala is really nice. Then he's really something else. And none of that's happening. But that's what we go through life. Okay? View of the trans story. I don't know. So it goes more and more and more deep. So this is about how the difficult emotions arise. We see what's not there and don't see what is there. We are hallucinating. You've seen this before, right? No? Sorry over there. It's not that clear. This is like a new kind of truck where they hang the cartons they hang them rather than stack them. No, this is a drawing. All of this is on the outside of the truck, just drawn there. Okay? That's how the difficult emotions arise. We see what's not there, and we don't see what is there, okay? We react. I reacted to Urs. My hostility came up because I projected on the call a really nice person, my best friend now, right? And then he did this thing. But I didn't know he was doing this. He was just responding, he's hallucinating Kala also. And saying, she's not nice. He's referring to something that's not there also. Believing it's there. That's how the difficult emotions arise. You think about, let's take an example. Anyone want to just give an example? Stress. Someone brought up stress, right? Last week. That's an easy one. So can someone give me an example of stress? When does stress come up for you? Is it a problem for anybody here? Anyone want to say what kind of stress?
I just know, I feel it. I mean, I get to the point where it's just hard to be clear about how to deal with it.
And what is happening just before that?
Physically.
Okay, and what is happening what are the causes?
Thoughts.
Thoughts, and what do you like?
Or hearing thoughts, or somebody says something.
Well, do you know is there a pattern for it for you? Like particular kinds of situations that stress comes up? We all get stressed, so I'm just wondering what could be
like in a kind of a work situation.
Yeah.
It could be all of a sudden there's a lot of orders coming in.
Oh, yeah.
And
Okay, that's good. So these orders are coming in through your computer or phone or how?
through food.
Oh, okay, got it. So it's so interesting. Can you see how, as you're standing in that booth and the orders are coming in, can you see how there's many angles you can look at this, right? Can you see just from one angle would be, can you see how the orders are coming? See, this data is coming to you, right? This physical data, right? They come on probably paper. The orders come on paper.
No, verbally.
Oh. Okay, now verbally, by the way, is also physical. Did you know, right? It's form. It's form. We usually don't think of it as form. It's form. Just like a piece of paper is form, the verbal communication is also form. It's wavelengths, right? Sound waves. Anything that you perceive, we perceive through our five senses is form. Just want to make that clear. That means odors are form, sounds are form, sights are form. So sights is the easy one. You see color and you see shapes, and you go, oh yeah, that's form. But so are smells. Odors are form because it's made up of molecules and atoms. The sound, they're going, hey, Doug, come on, right? This or give me one of these, give me 3 of these, right?
Yeah.
That's form also. Okay, it's made up of atoms. The sound coming into your ear is made up of atoms. Now, in the same way that we don't see this pillar or the person as changing moment to moment, we see it as something solid. Those sounds don't have any quality to them at all until you put it on them. They're just atoms. But we can't help but impute onto them and say, now there may be a lot of sound, a lot of atoms around there, but how you relate to them is you. And how you relate to them, like in stress, the first thing that happens, you see them as solid and existing from their own side. Okay, that's the deepest one. You see them as, and a simpler one is, you see them as solid, permanent. You don't see this wave happening. People see the wave happening, don't get stressed, by the way. It's really interesting. Because time is much slower for them. The more solid we see things, it's weird, but time speeds up. It's very strange. The intensity is more. If we saw it how it really was, things would be really slow. You get the gaps in between everything. But we don't get the gaps. We just get these solid boulders coming at us. So the first thing is that, what if you were just to say, how about starting with this? Those sounds don't exist the way they appear to me. I know they're appearing as solid, permanent. And they don't exist that way. Not even from physics point of view, they don't, right? Second thing you could say is, who's getting stressed? What happens is that sound, those orders are coming at you coming at you pretty quickly, and then you have a sensation, right? Like a little sense of overwhelm. It's like this little thing comes, and then you go, I feel overwhelmed. You don't even say it. I'm getting so overwhelmed. You just react to it. Then that I, we're talking about, so there's two, subject, object. So you've seen the object is permanent, unchanging, all those sound waves, and then the subject pops up as permanent. These people are so rude. Slow down. I can't take it. I'm stressed. And if you really look at who's stressed, where's Doug who's stressed? Doug is imputing onto some sensations that are coming up for him because of habit. Right. Which I didn't get to tonight. Sorry. We'll get to next time. What? It's okay. Tease him like, you want it or you don't want it?
Oh, I want it.
Oh,
I have to wait.
some other people get tired, Do you get a feel for this? So that whole experience of stress is actually mentally created, isn't it? There's no stress there. Because if there was stress there, then if I'm standing next to, I should be feeling it too, right? Right? If the stress is in the orders, then anyone in that place who's working with you should feel stressed too. Now, sometimes they do, and they say, "See, it is really stressful," but you know that there could be someone in there that doesn't feel stressed, right? Just stays cool. Okay, I got it. Different kind of a person. I don't know what that is. Okay, I'm sorry I didn't get to the 6 ways these things arise. We'll do that next week, I promise you. When you do the ABCD, what you can do with this, so here, example like with the stress example, your inquiry is just to watch the stress. Now in this path, it's really surprising, but in this approach, We want to stimulate these problems. We want them to come up. I want this, I want you to become so familiar with stress. I'm not saying I want you to get stressed. I said I want you to become familiar with stress. Because we don't actually know it. That's why we can't get over it. We actually don't understand how it functions. If we understand how it functions, we get a handle on it. That's just common sense. Okay? So these difficult emotions that we're talking about, I hope that after 4 classes, you get an idea, a little more understanding of them. Then you can get a handle on them. You can begin to work with them. And I think that's true because that's my experience. People who try this stuff, they have results. But it's not fast. But it's lasting. That's the difference. Okay? Any other questions? Questions? Something I confused you with?
Can you say the definition of reality?
Definition of reality is that the way something appears is the way it exists. Be careful not to get it backwards. Yes.
Well, just as an aside on the stress,
Yes.
I had a funny thing happen this week with which is my son, who is a young adult,
Uh-huh.
with him, he would say he has anxiety disorder. He also has extremely high functioning autism.
Mm-hmm.
He calls me up and he says he's really upset and he's really stressed. He says, I am so stressed. He says, I've made myself sick over it. I said, son, and he meditates, he does
Good.
quite a bit. And I said, my son, what is going on? What's wrong? What happened? You right away you're worried. He says, going around in my mind, I couldn't decide whether to go to the fitness center or the bowling center. And he's,
See, the fitness center and the bowling center are neutral.
that's right.
They're nothing. I have a little story. It's in this book, but I like this little saying. So there's 3 umpires. Everyone, see, I was in Mexico recently, and by the way, they don't know baseball much down there. Even though all our players are from Mexico, but many are players. So they tried to get me to change this little story for football, soccer, and it doesn't work. So but anyway, it's 3 umpires. After a game, they go into a bar, they're having a beer. And the first umpire says, there's balls and there's strikes, and I call them as I see them. And the second umpire says, no, you got it wrong. Oops, I said it wrong. No, sorry, I blew it. There's balls and there's strikes, and I call them as they are. Second umpire says, no, you got it wrong. There's balls and there's strikes, and I call them as I see them. Third umpire says, you're both wrong. There are balls and there's strikes, and they're nothing until I call them. Okay?
Yeah,
There's the fitness center, the bowling center, the food orders aren't nothing
right.
until we call them.
Well, I told him to stay home.
No stress at home. But last thing is, it's okay to manage. It's okay to manage the external environment. We have to. We have to. I don't want to go extreme. It's all mental. But the solution is never in managing the external environment. The internal solution is only from internal. Okay? So it doesn't mean we shouldn't work for the environment, work for social justice, all those things. Just don't get mistaken that that'll solve the problems. Do you know where global warming comes from? Does anyone know? It's a tricky question, isn't it? It comes from the collective mentality of the people. The global warming is a manifestation of that. Oh, okay, we'll see next week. Maybe that's too airy.
Very, very comfortable.